Welcome to the podcast Newcomers in US Schools. My name is Irlin, and I will be joined by three of my colleagues as we dive into this topic. We will cover changes from the new administration to current experiences from educators in the field. Make sure to check out the informational poster that accompanies this episode, and all sources can be found at the bottom of the official transcript. All right, let's jump in. Immigration has drawn increased attention in recent months as the Trump administration has taken measures to impose more restrictive policies. Immigration policies bear significant weight in the U.S., and educational policies reflecting these shifts through attacks on immigrants and DEI in schools. Today, we will discuss the contexts of newcomers in U.S. schools and how their experiences are shaped.
Hello, my name is Erin, and the first topic related to newcomers in U.S. schools that we wanted to cover was student experiences. The Pew Research Center lists California, Texas, Florida, and New York as states with the largest number of immigrants, while the South and the West are listed as two regions with the highest immigrant populations. Generally, the U.S. can be accommodating to immigrant and newcomer students, but it really depends on the state, district, schools, and even the teachers and programs that they come from. Many schools in the U.S. are good at recognizing and accommodating diverse religions and cultures, while others can be more selective in their decisions to recognize these communities and serve their individual needs. Schools play a significant role in student experiences. The atmosphere, curriculum, pedagogy, and personnel all contribute to a smooth, successful transition versus what could be a more difficult one. In the Fresh Ed podcast with Sarah Dryden Peterson, she discusses how schools' implementation of these elements demonstrates the way states view newcomer futures in a host country. For example, some refugee students may only be able to attend classes when national students are not there, resulting in segregated classes and school structures, or the curriculum and language are not made accessible, among other barriers. It is important for schools to be aware and actionable towards these nuances that can complicate newcomer student experiences. We had some ESOL high school educators, ESOL standing for English for Speakers of Other Languages. These educators shared their perspectives on the role that schools play in newcomer experiences. The first educator stated that schools are safe havens where students should feel welcome and can thrive. Having liaisons that assist families as they adapt to new routines, offering clubs, counseling, and other opportunities where students can share their culture are all ways that schools can assist in having a positive experience. Another educator stated, when students grow up and are well past high school, the thing that they remember most is the relationships that they build. The role of the school is to foster positive relationships. They help students learn and grow educationally. As these educators highlight, relationships and inclusion should be at the forefront of the newcomer's experience in U.S. schools. Depending on the context, personnel, and resources available, this transition could be positive or it could be negative. In addition to these challenges, it can be difficult adjusting to language barriers without the proper support as well. Students come with a wide range of educational experiences and different language knowledges when entering U.S. schools. However, exacerbated negative attitudes towards immigrants is reinforcing linguistic insecurity among students. Deficit perspectives towards language allow for language gentrification. An example of language gentrification can be seen in a podcast episode called Nice White Parents by This American Life. Often in U.S. schools, there is an atmosphere that accompanies multilingualism that projects it as enrichment for primarily upper, like the middle upper class white student. But when students with other native languages are not native-like in English, they tend to be labeled as uneducated or behind. And as Garen writes, a nation that is truly valuing diversity must recognize that its strength lies not in linguistic conformity, but in its multilingual heritage. Ultimately, language rights are human rights, and schools should promote this understanding throughout the school culture and in the curricula and teacher pedagogy, while also meeting needs through the delivery of proper accommodations for linguistically diverse students. Even with all these challenges, another ESOL educator responded with the following statement when asked if the current programs for newcomer students are successful. They stated, "I think they are successful if students are willing to learn. I've experienced pushback from some students. You don't know under what circumstances they have come to the U.S. My feelings are that some students are resentful and don't want to learn the language or skills being taught. Others are older students who haven't been in the school for a while and it's difficult for them and they are not successful because of the language barrier. Or they might lack previous school experience, have had many breaks from school, and their age. The older you are, the harder it is to learn a new language."
Hello, my name is Autumn, and I'm going to move from the challenges and language perspective of student experiences just covered by Erin to cultural and social inclusion of newcomers in US schools. We wanted to uncover some real-life responses in the area of social-emotional needs of newcomers. Generally, newcomer students have a vast array of past experiences, ranging from traumatic to dangerous to resentful to deeply painful. Keeping this in mind, current ESOL educators noted that relationships with other students, counselors, and teachers are the main avenues to support students in social-emotional well-being. Here are 2 quotes from current high school educators in ESOL. Quote, "Here we have an ESOL counselor who is dedicated to their needs. We also have support groups that meet, one for boys and one for girls." End quote. The second is, quote, "We have counselors and social workers to support newcomers. Just like with anything else, some students utilize the support more than others. Teachers also see the students the most, and they develop strong connections with the students. This year we were not able to run them, but usually the counselor runs social-emotional groups with the students to discuss social-emotional needs." End quote. As always, there is a continual room for improvement. One educator noted, quote, "I think the loving, caring teachers do all they can, but I do think more could be done as a whole by the school system to make newcomers feel like they are truly welcome and embraced as an asset to our country, culture, school." End quote. In terms of social and cultural inclusion, many schools celebrate culture in a variety of ways. Teachers can include culturally relevant practices and curriculum. In addition, many schools often host international nights where students can celebrate and share aspects of their culture with other students. Like always, there is room for improvement. One educator stated, quote, "I do not feel that schools negate culture, but we could be doing more." End quote. In addition, some teachers feel that the system model for integrating students needs to be amended. Newcomer students should be included with co-teaching support into as many general education classes as possible. This would allow, quote, "our newcomers would feel more like they belong to the school as a whole, not like a separate, different group," end quote. As an ESOL educator myself, I support the co-teaching model. However, general education teachers would need training on different methods of co-teaching. Many have never taught with another teacher as an equal in the classroom, and the administrators would need to allow time for teachers to plan together to create the most effective co-teaching model. Finally, as a bridge between cultural and social inclusion and the following section on policy and advocacy, we wanted to take a moment to recognize the changes in diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, programs around the United States with the current administration. DEI is an important measure for the inclusion in educational policies and practices. John Mott performed a study exploring the effect of mixed schooling on attitudes towards immigrants across diverse national contexts, finding that exclusionary attitudes negatively affect the integration of immigrant students and overall social cohesion. In addition, Mutka Kulkarni also shares concern for potential drawbacks of silencing and eliminating DEI programs, such as employee polarization, legal challenges due to the perception of discrimination, unequal opportunities, and shadow DEI programs as informal networks that would undermine transparency and sow distrust. Though Kulkarni speaks to all sectors of public life, these disadvantages would also be prevalent in sentiments students bring to school from their home lives, as well as school staff. On a more positive note, Murr remarks that there is hope where individuals in position of leadership continue to make inclusion a priority. This can be specifically through DEI initiatives or other strategies such as designing culturally relevant curriculum and approaching pedagogy with an asset-based mindset. Murr states, quote, "Strength is to continue the conversations. Even though there is no universal right or wrong, and inclusive behavior cannot be written into guidelines and codes of conduct." End quote.
Hello everyone, my name is Philip, and I'll be covering the last section of our podcast, including policy actors, change, and advocacy. This section reflects on the impact of the Trump administration, as well as some policy gaps that need to be addressed in the future. Families and schools have been responding in different ways to this administration's recent decisions. Schools with large populations of migrant students are experiencing a lot of fear and uncertainty, adding to the challenges of both schooling and educating students. I think this is reflected in drops schools have seen in daily attendance rates as the Trump administration eliminated schools as safe zones. Per Brian Mann from NPR News, the Trump administration says it will no longer consider churches and schools off limits to agents tracking down and arresting migrants without legal status. In response to these policies and anxieties, they have required many local and state education systems to develop or reissue guidance for school staff to use if and when they have to interact with ICE or Border Customs Enforcement. Decreased attendance rates, heightened anxieties, and feelings of vulnerability definitely put immigrant students at risk for academic disruptions and take a huge toll on their well-being. Some of our current ESOL teachers commented on the changes they've noticed or not noticed related to newcomers and the administration's positions and policies. "It is making all challenges exponentially more difficult," said one educator. Another said, 1, this is instilling fear. 2, students' future plans and ability to plan for the future are impacted. One high school teacher shared, "Fear of being separated from family members, also divisions. Sometimes other students will say something and newcomers sometimes develop an us versus them mentality because things are hostile." When thinking about future changes that need to be made, some ESOL teachers note that in a continually digitized world, accessibility becomes a hurdle. Even though these skills are important and can improve efficiency, often families of newcomers might get left behind. Per one teacher, "The biggest gap I see is that the education world is modernizing, and parents are expected to scan QR codes and fill forms online instead of signing them on paper, etc. They are fully expected to read their emails. Many of my students' parents do not know how to do this type of stuff. In my opinion, that is not fair. I understand why they do it, but the old way should be accessible as well. Especially something like qualifying for free or reduced lunches should be able to be filled out by pen and paper. Sometimes policies like this are not fair." Often communities play an important role in supporting families as well. Currently, many communities offer language classes, supplies, food, furniture, legal and or medical support through private, religious, and nonprofit organizations. Making sure that families have access to know about these resources is key. Schools, as a central piece to general routine and information, play a critical role in disseminating information to newcomer families.
To close, while it is important to recognize that newcomers often require different forms of support than those who are long established in the community, it's equally important to honor their agency and dignity. The power of storytelling can drive public opinion, and it can mean the difference between creating a school and community culture that feels welcoming or one that feels full of hurdles and obstacles. How we hear, receive, and share the stories of others makes a difference. And the story we want to leave you with is one of hope. The U.S. education system, while always in need of maintenance, is filled with people, educators, administrators, students, family liaisons, and volunteers who are ready and willing to welcome newcomers from all over the world. Let's continue to do the work of listening deeply, supporting intentionally, and building communities where every student, no matter where they come from, feels seen, valued, and empowered to thrive. Thanks for joining us, and we hope you enjoy this episode.